Rapid aging will be a crucial megatrend affecting Malaysia in the coming decades. Now, according to the World Bank, Malaysia is moving from being an aging society to an aged society in just 24 years. Now, this transition is similar to the pace of Japan and follows a trend of other high-income economies. As of 2020, 6.8% of Malaysians are above 65 years old. It is projected that by 2044, 14% of society will be above the age of 65. And by 2056, if Malaysia continues on this trajectory, we will become a super-aged society with over 20% of our population above the age of 65. Now, though one might think that age is just a number, in the larger scheme of things, as a nation, we have much to consider and plan for. Hi, I'm Nadiah Latif, and welcome to The Nation. Today I'll be discussing aged care in Malaysia with James Tan, CEO of Suntrack Development Sdn Bhd, on what we mean when we say retirement village and well-being for our senior loved ones. Thank you for joining me, James.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Now, we were discussing this earlier before the program started. Could you give me the distinction of what's the difference between retirement village and maybe senior care?
Oh, yes. Many people think they are the same. Really, they're not. So retirement villages, quite broadly, as seen in Australia or some other countries, are more for the independent, active seniors who desire a certain lifestyle, who desire a community of like-minded people with some minimum level of care within the same village. So that's the retirement village. Even that, personally, I would like to use the word seniors living instead of retirement, because a lot of our seniors are still active.
They're not retiring anytime
soon.
They're
not, part-time, consultancy, and they have much to give to our society.
Yeah.
Now, the second one is aged care. Aged care would be a purpose-built environment where it's designed for higher level of care, therapy, some form of medical attention for people who require more assistance to carry on with their daily lives. So that's the distinction. But allow me to make another point about retirement villages, because as we speak, the trend is rethinking. There's a rethink about retirement village being an exclusive place only for old people, only for seniors. It's not quite real. It's not quite real. You don't see children screaming, and you don't get that kind of communal environment. So I quote Dr. Bill Thomas, a famous geriatric doctor from the USA. He coined this term MAGIC, multi-ability, multi-generational, inclusive community, which I thought was absolutely beautiful. It's really encouraging people of different abilities, generations to come together in an environment that is more purposeful, that's more encouraging for people to age in place.
We definitely see a lot of that in other countries now. It's perhaps something that we should really start seriously trying to focus on in Malaysia, where you did say inclusivity, you did say multi-generational, you did say looking at the quality of the years in the life the individual has. Now, before I go to that, I just wanted to ask you, before we dive deeper into the nitty-gritties of what a retirement village might have, could you share a little bit about what you think are the possible challenges Malaysia is going to be facing in the next few years going down this route of becoming an aged nation?
We have much to do. The challenges are in preparing the place, preparing our communities, preparing our shops and retail malls, to embrace the people getting older who require certain assistance in walking or being wheelchair friendly, having those facilities in place to support them. So yeah, those are some of the challenges in place. And also we need a lot more suitable aged care facilities to embrace people who require more assistance. Yeah, such are the challenges that I see.
And I think that's quite a lot, right? A lot of people just assume that aging care means care homes. I think this has been a myopic view that we've been having for quite a while now. We assume that people who are older than us or senior citizens are those that are not active, are not able to contribute back to society.
Yes, that's
that I think there's too much on TV anyway that paints this picture of they need assistance, when in actuality it might be the other way around. Now, you've mentioned quite a lot there. Yes, we understand that there will be changing patterns of consumption. There are opportunities to the economy. We know for a fact that aged care will be a new economic driver for Malaysia if we're going down this route. It's definitely something that we have to contend with.
Correct.
Now, earlier we were talking about the silver economy, and when we're talking about looking at these senior citizens as a driver to the society, not just in terms of consumption for the sake of healthcare needs, but also one that helps to contribute back to society. So in the retirement village that you have in mind, that you envisage at Suntrack, what is that secret sauce that allows for, would you call them residents or would you call them...
Residents.
Residents,
people,
right.
People,
so what
residents.
would you consider the people be able to do to be able to contribute back to their wellness and their well-being?
In our project where we do multi-generational residence, we have specifically designed places, meeting rooms, big and small, because we anticipated our seniors to use them for their part-time consultancy and have meetings and invite people to meet them. That's where they can actively contribute back to society and business. In terms of wellness, yes, we've also designed our residents to care for them. Yeah.
Now, if you've been in the property development industry for at least 20 years now, right?
Yes, yes.
Still not that long. It's okay. There's a lot more years to go, right?
It's all right.
But if you look at it, I mean, property prices are always that hot debate. Can people afford things? But as a property developer, how do you think we are able to provide more suitable and more affordable solutions or offerings to the average Malaysian, or even the not average Malaysian? That's fine too.
You mean in terms of aged care, right?
Yes.
Okay, there are two parts to my answer, okay? First things first, if the home was built and retrofitted suitable for aging in place, or if the residents will move into a purpose-built place, multi-generational one like the ones we're doing, then they could live independently with minimum level of care and support for much longer and ultimately defer aged care. Part one of my answer. Part two of my answer, aged care is inevitably expensive.
Yes.
There are standards to be fulfilled. It's labor intensive to care for people, some are bedridden and so forth. I feel that as an industry grow, with more economies of scale. Current nursing homes are quite small, yeah?
Yes.
If I see from what I visited in other countries where they are larger in scale, hopefully costs will come down.
Yeah.
But costs will never come down to 500 ringgit a month to care for a senior.
Yes.
Okay, so there's some expectation, there's some minimum level of service that needs to be put in. So that's where government subsidy will have to come in. But it's a chicken and egg situation.
Yeah.
I think that the aged care industry itself has to establish itself so that government can see themselves in a more strategic manner. Even insurance company can come in a strategic manner to subsidize and pay for part of the cost. That makes it affordable for some of our Malaysians.
Definitely. I'll go back to that question in a bit because I do want to ask you about that affordability factor.
Right.
But I love that you mentioned magic, right?
Oh, yes, magic, yes.
Let's talk a little bit about magic. So when you're
Right.
talking about magic in your retirement village and aged care in Malaysia, what does it mean when you say magic in property development?
Okay, first of all, we are not developing retirement villages now because we believe in an inclusive community. Remember?
Great.
So it's multi-generation. So what makes our project magic? There are a few key features. First of all, universal design is wheelchair accessibility, designing for some visual impairment, designing for dementia. There's a huge load of materials on the internet that you can find on how to make homes suitable for them.
Yeah.
Universal design first. Second, maximum fire protection. From everywhere I've visited around the world, fire protection is something they never compromise, simply because some of our seniors are not able to run for their life to the stairs.
Yes.
So fire protection, sprinklers in specific, will keep our residents very safe. And in fact, of our condo, we actually provided over and above bomba requirement for a residential condo. Third, care on site. Some minimum care on site. Sometimes it is a village doctor kind of concept,
Yes.
Sometimes
so sort of concierge medicine.
Yeah, correct. Sometimes the seniors just feel a bit unwell. They just want to have someone to talk to.
Yes.
And they want someone to coordinate, keep record, who's their favorite doctor, where to go for emergency.
Yeah.
So we partner with an Australia home care partner to provide care on site. Last but not least, and more important than the first three added together, is communal activity.
Yes.
It is the village, is raising a village of people coming together. And we as a developer, with our architect, we have a role to play. We call it placemaking.
Yes.
We design intentionally places that will attract you and keep you close together.
Yeah.
That almost kind of like really encourage you to come together and
Develop
have
that
interaction,
communal sense.
community. Be it next to the dance hall, next to the meeting room, the lounge, the communal farming. So these four things that I just mentioned really comes together to do magic. for our project.
I love that, because everything you mentioned to me makes perfect sense, even for those that are not in need of,
It's for everyone.
aged property development. Like, for example,
Yes.
universal design is something that we've been trying to push for in Malaysia for years now.
Absolutely.
If it is something that is wheelchair friendly,
Yes.
has at least care in trying to develop resources that are helping our friends and our residents that have got
Different abilities.
visual and different abilities,
Correct.
makes sense. It works for
Absolutely.
everyone.
Absolutely.
And I love the
Yeah.
fact that you were talking about making this sense of community or building this sense of camaraderie.
Play together.
Now, how is that different from the property development that you see, rows and rows of homes that we now have? And what would need to shift, for us to be able to get to that, let's develop this community, takes care of community once again, and have
Right.
all of these resources around it?
We're doing this out of our vision to be a
Yes.
great company that develops magic community. We hope that perhaps we could be, honored to start a movement, perhaps,
It does sound like it's going to be a movement.
Well, I do hope so, yeah.
So what
And
does it take to start that movement?
we're doing it already, Our first project, our first magic project is Twai Residence in Setia Alam, and it's very well received. We're almost sold out. We're very
Wow.
pleased. It's like a testimony, that our concept is well received. People understand, they come in, they have aged parents living with them, or the seniors themselves. So we see that already.
So now I'm going to be devil's advocate a bit.
Sure.
You were talking about magic homes. Now, if we have magic homes, will we still need facilities like, for example, aged care facilities or even nursing homes? Because you said the concept is very different now.
Correct. With Magic Home, we encourage people to age in place, age in community for as long as they can. Your question is, do we then need aged care facility? The question is this, you see, I wish for myself and you and all my friends and family that we age well at home.
Yes.
But statistically speaking, many of our seniors are not so healthy.
Yes.
Statistically speaking, the real package of cholesterol,
Yes.
hypertension, and dementia
Yes.
and so forth. So unfortunately, some of us are not well enough to be taken care at home, even with home care, even in a magic community like ours.
Yeah.
That's where aged care becomes relevant and still much needed.
So I suppose then the question is, how can we integrate between what you've just talked about in terms of magic home and maybe sort of peppering that magic dust onto the next type of care that is needed? It could be palliative care. It could be in a lot of our care homes that we see, or nursing homes that we see in Malaysia, it's sort of you check in and then you don't necessarily check out. You check out someplace else, right? And it's not something that we necessarily want to talk about, but it is the actual truth.
Right.
Now, I want to go back to what you said earlier about what you were talking about subsidies, you were talking about how the government is assisting, etc. Now, I want to ask you this question. Do you think Malaysians can actually afford this? I mean, if you're talking about the price point, what's necessary, because we know that a lot of us may not necessarily be able to afford aging gracefully or even retiring gracefully. If we look at this, right, the latest data from EPF said that in November 2021, 6.1 million EPF contributors, 72% of them being Bumiputra, have less than 10,000 ringgit in their accounts. And this compares starkly with the EPF basic savings of 240,000, which is the minimum amount considered sufficient to support, a member's needs for, say, 20 years of retirement. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I briefly answered it just now. Having their home suitable for aging in place for longer, so that they can defer the requirement for aged care, would be an interim solution. Getting healthier would be a solution too.
Yes.
But I'm not here to talk about health.
Yes.
And then subsidy has to come in. The government has also rightfully supported certain NGOs that provides volunteer to send home care to the hardcore poor elderly.
Okay.
Usiamas is one of them, so
Yep.
I applaud them very much for that. That will be the take, not everyone can afford aged care, but then sending volunteers or care at home or allowing the homes to live as long as they can would be the interim solution.
And I think that's something that's important, because as we try and contend with the fact that the numbers are going to increase, not all of them would require critical care. Not all of them will require really hands-on needs. The majority of us, hopefully, are those that are healthy enough, are still contributing to society one way or another, but want to age in a way that keeps them happy, that keeps them active, that keeps them engaged.
Yes,
right?
Correct.
Agree. Now, what are some of the features you were talking about? I know that you've got clubhouse, you were talking about all of these different features of your property development. What would be some of the bespoke things that we could perhaps ideate or envisage in Suntrack's property developments?
All that I mentioned, we've done it. You know, the universal design, the fire protection, the nurse on site, the communal space, the placemaking. We did it in our Twai residence, and
now,
it's well received.
The Twai residence will hopefully have, what is the community size of the Twai residence at the moment?
The phase 1 is 330 families, and then we have phase 2 that we will launch end of this year. And also to add on to aging in place, we are building a Twai care hub.
Nice.
Right beside the Twai residence, connected by a link bridge. Now, often we envision couples, one fall ill first, require assistance first, and then assistance is a link bridge away. So we're offering a solution where people not only age at home, they age in community, they're not displaced. Couples are not split far away, and they just link bridge away from their grandchildren, perhaps, or coming back to the activities.
I like the fact that you're saying that this is a multi-generational township. So it doesn't necessarily mean that your potential, I suppose, target audience are only those that are aged, right? Someone like me or my family will be able to live in a community
like
that
everyone.
Because it makes sense to have.
Yeah, and surprisingly, I've come across younger people in their late 40s going like, I want to live here because, this is my solution for a long term. Wow, okay, you're a bit young to talk like that, but fine, we welcome you.
No, but that's great, because the whole idea of planning ahead for the future is while you're still well and while you still have this, your family might be still growing, right? There is an opportunity. I'm going to be old. I'm already heading that direction, but when I do have, children much bigger, or if I have my grandchildren with me, we see a lot more intergenerational homes now in Malaysia.
Correct.
And that's definitely something that's refreshing, because a lot of people are thinking of a home to stay in, a home to nest, and a home to grow old, and not necessarily sort of that nomadic behavior that we're more used to.
Correct. So surprisingly, the younger ones are talking about it more than someone who's 70.
Yeah.
Oh, surprising.
So, how can we then plan better ahead? So if you're trying to look at the catchment area of those that are maybe 40s and above, that are already starting to plan ahead for retirement, what are some of the things, in your view, should be things that we should start looking out for?
For the 40s, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, for a family of maybe 4 or 5, and you've got children we have this, what we call empty nest syndrome, right? Where people leave, and then you start saying, wait, I've got this huge house, and then now nobody else to live with me. What are some of the things that we should start planning, knowing that we're becoming
choose to live in a community. As much as landed houses are very nice, most of the time, sadly, there isn't much of a community, because it's not designed for people to interact with a clubhouse down the road or a garden that's nearby. So planning ahead, coming to a magic, community where your children get to see older people age gracefully with dignity, and use that as an example for society or themselves. I think will be a great place to start. And
I think it speaks very nicely to the semangat kekitaan that we have in Malaysia, right? We are a very communal society. We believe that the young should respect the old, the same way the ones that are much older than us also have something to contribute back to society.
And they learn to embrace differences. Embrace people with wheelchair and not go like, you hardly see people who have different abilities around our shopping malls. It's like, where are they? Are they at home? Statistically, we have quite a lot of them,
Yes, but they're not out. So
they're not out.
The fact that all these offerings are there, all these amenities are there, will hopefully be able to mainstream not only the conversation, but also be able to have more people who are differently able out and about.
Correct.
Thank you so much for that. And unfortunately, James, as they say in Bahasa, masa mencemburui kita. Thank you so much. Now, I have one last question to ask you.
Sure.
Now, whether we choose to acknowledge that aged care is something that is urgent or impending, and the majority of us would like to think that, long time some more lah.
No.
Worry, right?
You need to plan ahead.
So, what are the key things when we say planning ahead, other than making sure that we've got enough savings to be able to afford something that is sustainable for our family? What are some of the other things other than savings? What do you think are some of the things that we should think about? Other than not living, staying away from, think of living in a community as opposed to in high-rise buildings. What are some of the things that we should think about?
Staying healthy, make good friends, keep yourself engaged, never retire. Never plan to retire.
What do you mean by never plan to retire? Because a lot of people look forward to retirement by saying, when I retire, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. But that's very different.
Just
from
do different things. You know, if you know, I've seen some senior go like, you know, get a 2-day job, you know, 2-day week job. The wealth of knowledge and experience that you have, people will welcome you to share your experience and your thoughts, right? Yeah.
And I think this is what you've earlier mentioned out. I like the fact that we're coming full circle now. You did say that in other countries you're seeing that camaraderie, that inclusivity, where you've got, even if it is a retirement village, or what your other term, your earlier term,
seniors living residence.
Yes, seniors
I would prefer that
living
anytime.
residence.
Yes.
Where you have both the young and the not so young are contributing together, and
Right.
I think it was actually a science-backed research that showed that the instances of dementia or even Alzheimer's were improved because they had, you know, interaction.
Keep them engaged.
Yeah.
Keep them engaged. Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Wonderful. Now, if there was any last messages that you wanted to give, you know, when we're talking about understanding the differences between retirement village and this stigma that we have with nursing care, what are some of the, if anyone were to ask you, what is that one thing that you wished people would get straight and get right about the jaundice perception of the two?
Embrace different abilities and different generations. Embrace them. Design, you know, plan for it. Embrace them. You know, a day will come. I envision the day we design a playground where children with different children on a wheelchair can play with able-bodied children in the same playground. And we want to start with the younger generation so that, you know, as they grow older, they embrace people with different abilities and generations. That would be my parting message.
And I like that because this is similar to what the government has been doing in trying to push for this whole concept of Keluarga Malaysia.
Absolutely.
And in fact, yesterday, UNICEF had launched this inclusive playground.
Yes.
This idea of, you know, a playground is meant to be enjoyed by all ages.
All ages.
Not necessarily
everyone.
just...
Yeah, the seniors together. I've seen that already. Yes, it's wonderful.
Now, if we were to include something like this would mean that offerings or parks or even residential amenities would be multi-generational, open for all. It doesn't really matter whether you are considered abled or differently abled, and it's something that you can enjoy.
Correct.
Wonderful. Now, you've just given me a lot of things to consider, and I would probably have to think about how do I plan ahead, in what are some of the things that I need to think about planning ahead, not only for my family, but as you said, I mean, if we are going to be really staying through this whole concept of Keluarga Malaysia, how does a family take care of each other as a society, not just our individual families to each his own.
Yes,
Thank you so much, James, for that conversation. And I think at the end of the day, right, the truth is we're all aging, whether or not we would like to acknowledge it or whether it's going to happen earlier rather than later. And so,
I only hope that we all age with dignity in our golden years. After all that we have done, we have worked so hard, we have served our country. We deserve that.
Definitely. And I think planning for the future, there's nothing wrong with planning for the future, including for ourselves. And I think that way we're looking at retirement as something to look forward to, a next adventure.
Seniors living, not really retirement. You never retire, remember?
Never retire. There you go. Well said. Thank you so much for your time today. And then, of course, always think of wellness and keeping yourself well. Never retire. And of course, stay safe.
Thank you. My name is James Tan. I'm the CEO of Suntrack Development. We're the proud developer of Twai Residence in Setia Alam. Today I would like to tell you about Twai Residence, the concept and the passion, really the passion behind the work that we have here today, and the vision to make a stand for an inclusive community that is built for multi-generation and multi-ability, where no one is left behind. Everything in Twai Residence is about peace of mind. Peace of mind knowing that we have nurses on site to care for our residents, we have fire sprinklers to keep everyone very safe at home, wheelchair accessibility so that no one is left behind if the need shall ever arise, even to recover from a short surgery. We have plentiful of communal space for everyone, to really have a great time together and do stuff together in the community, from herb gardens to the clubhouse to the cafe to the badminton courts and everything. And the same link bridge connects to our future retail shops, where we have we'll curate it with tuition center, music class, or doctors, dentists. So in all Twai Residence, it's a freehold, low density setup where everyone is comfortable and live and reap happiness.